Welcome to the Gal's Guide to the Galaxy podcast, where a group of gals gather for you one cool thing around our topic of the month. Is it ancient history? Is it breaking news? Is it safe for work? Well, that's up to each gal. All we know is that...
Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night.
Welcome back. I'm Bonnie, and I'm joined by Kate and Leah talking about our one cool thing. Leah already talked about fibroids.
Such a sexy topic.
But before we dive back in, let's get to know some random things about our gal pals. I want to know, what skill would you like to master?
Katie and I are just staring at each other.
Because we have all the skills.
We have all the skills to pay the bills.
Yeah. I think I'm just going to play into what my natural interests and hobbies are. And I love to cook.
Yes.
I do.
You are a very good cook.
Thank you. Yes. I love to cook. Freak out when other people try my stuff.
You do, but it's so good that you shouldn't.
I love to cook. And for a long time, I've been really, really wanting to learn how to make macaroons. So just for funsies, I'm not going to go something deep. I just want to master the skill of making a macaroon. They're so beautiful, colorful. It's the rainbow, and they taste amazing.
Yeah. So. I see them on the Great British Bake Off all the time, and I see them mess them up, too. So, like,
they're complicated,
yes,
yeah.
Exactly. Sometimes you do everything right, and then all of a sudden something happens in the oven, and they die.
And I'm not a good attention to detail or make things pretty kind of person. So
but macaroons are all about
I tend to be a beautiful mess, so macaroons are... They're perfection, so that would be the magical skill I would want to possess, to master.
Okay. I'm going to do grammar. I feel like my life would be a little better off with second guessing if I could just get grammar down. I don't know what it is. It's always... English is hard. It is a very messed up language compared to other languages. Cami, my daughter is learning Japanese, and so, you know what I mean? And she's explaining things to me. I'm like, yeah, no, that's a much more organized way to run a freaking language, unlike what we have. Right. So, I'm sorry. But yeah, I'm dyslexic, which I didn't find out until college, because apparently when I was in high school, they weren't allowed to use the word, because they said it was a diagnosis if a teacher said the word dyslexia, so there was a fear. So when I got into college and I turned my first paper in, it was an F. And I went, what happened? Because it was a writing paper. I'm like, this is my strong suit. Right. And they're like, oh, we thought you'd be used to that with having dyslexia and all. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? What do you even know? What? So that's when I learned that I had it. And then it totally made sense of flipping words and, reading something and it's not right. So, but I think understanding grammar, even pushing through dyslexia, would be a wonderful skill for me to have, because I do love words. I love reading words. I love writing words. I love expressing words.
Does the autocorrect make it better or worse?
It does. It does help. Actually, Grammarly has really been helping me because it gets me. And it's like, did you mean? It's like, yes, I did. It's much better than spell check. Because secret and secretes are both spelled right. But Grammarly knows that I didn't mean secretes. I never mean secretes. Never. Ever.
No.
And patient. You know what I mean? Like, you're a patient in a doctor's room and you're patiently waiting for the doctor. Like, those are spelled the same way.
I had a freak out at work. I was trying to write that something had a tear. I started writing it out and I'm like, no, that's tear.
Right.
And I'm like,
yeah.
Questioning my whole existence here.
Yeah.
Like,
now I got it.
It's like, but there. Wait.
Yes. Read and read still. Oh, every time. Oh, yeah. So that would be mine. What would be yours, Bonnie?
Mine ties into my thing. Yes. I would like to know coding and more computer stuff. Like, I know HTML and CSS. Yeah. I don't use them anymore. I use a WYSIWYG for my website now.
I know, they make it so much easier, so I mean, why not, right? Save some time.
But I feel like in another life, like if I was born 10 years younger, I would be like one of these little ladies going to coding camp and stuff.
I love those.
Yeah, I really wanted to go to space camp. I feel like just 10 years, it'd be coding camp.
Yes.
Coding camp's the new space camp.
Yeah.
Jonah just signed up for coding, being a coding ninja.
Nice.
Yeah, it's set up like, real karate where he gets a white bracelet and then he goes and codes and gets a yellow bracelet.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice.
So he's going to.
Are they going to get like a Raspberry Pi thingy?
Yes.
Yeah.
We have one of those. We have two, actually. One of them's a video game and one of them plays music. This is what we decided to use. I have friends that use Raspberry Pi to build R2-D2's life size, but we decided to build a video game and basically iTunes. To each his own. I think that would be awesome. So what is your one cool thing,
My
girl?
one cool thing is this book I just finished, and it's Broadband, The Untold Story of Women Who Made the Internet.
Yes.
And I love it because it's a pun.
Yes.
Broadband.
It is broadband. Which, of course, I got to follow up. So Al Gore didn't create the internet. Sorry, I've known this.
I don't think Al Gore was even mentioned in this book.
No way. They escaped the whole book without... That's probably a good idea.
No, I was like, I know about women in computing, but I didn't know that any women were involved in the internet. Like, I'd never heard any of this. It's like...
Guessed.
It's like everything. I'm like, I didn't know women did that, and there's like a whole bunch of them. This is why we are here.
Sweet. Spread the knowledge and out. So tell me and Katie about it because we're like,
good word.
I know.
So it started out with Ada Lovelace.
Yes.
The former. Was she on Your Gal Friday?
Yes, we did a Your Gal Friday, the first algorithm computer programmer.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It had her in there, and it had, because I've been doing research on Rear Admiral Grace Hopper. I think the next lady I'm going to paint.
Yes.
She was featured in the book. She invented the first compiler and A-0 code and COBOL, which is computer-oriented business operating language, something like that.
You're good at remembering what it stands for. I always just say COBOL language.
It's still used in like ATMs.
Yeah.
So her goal was basically for you to be able to type like in English into the computer to tell it what you wanted it to do. Instead of having to know like a computer language or binary, that you just be like, you should just do this.
Yes, I should.
So it had so many women, and I was doing the audiobook, which was narrated by the author, which I thought was nice.
Oh, I always love that.
There's a whole bunch of women. One woman was a spelunker.
Oh,
Is that what it is, maybe? She's in Mammoth Cave, which is near here.
Oh,
She ended up, like, that was her hobby, was mammoth caving.
Huh.
And she ended
Looking
up,
for
they
treasure and
found a connection that they proved that these caves were connected.
Ooh.
And this woman did that. So not only did she have that, she was also involved with the beginning of the internet.
No way.
And
That's
her,
cool.
I guess it was her, I think it was her ex-husband at that point, had wrote like one of the first computer games that they shared on like the beginnings of the internet, like not like way before dial-up. Like that's the thing.
Right,
I'm like,
right.
I was around at the beginning there. I remember AOL and the
Oh,
no,
yeah.
there was
Torture
like
device.
so much before that.
There was actually, because I remember one of the guys that I was dating, he had a computer in the corner, and it was really just like, it was DOS. It was just like, you know, these little triangles and then numbers and stuff like that. And I'm like, what is that running? And he's like, oh, I'm talking on the internet. I'm like, what is even happening right now?
What is internet?
Exactly. It just, it looked like a series of numbers and dots. Yeah.
So, but he ended up making one of the first like computer games that was like shared on the internet.
Ooh.
And it was like a text-based game where you're like, okay, you enter a dungeon, you know, which way do you go? And you type, you know,
choose
turn
your own
left,
adventure?
kind of. And there was like different things that you could go, but the map that was based on was the cave system that they had discovered. Like if you had drawn it out, it would be that cave. And I think he like did it to get her back or something. There was something very sad about
It was
it.
a revenge play a little bit.
But there were like women living in like communes in the 70s, like sharing like a mass computer thing in the middle and plugging into it. There was all kinds of stuff. I'm trying to go through my notes.
Yeah, no,
I
you're
have
good.
everyone's name misspelled, I'm sure.
You are good. Did you come across, I think her name is Joyce Wessenbecker? Did you come across her?
That sounds familiar.
Okay. I know she was, I want to say in the last year, maybe the last 2, she was discovered to probably be the first modern video game designer. As far as like cartridge, you know what I mean? When we started doing video games, not so much like download. But for the longest time, we actually thought it was a lady at Atari. Ooh. But there was a whole gaming system that Sony had before Atari. But because it never lasted, because Atari won, you know what I mean? Commodore 64 and Atari won. You never hear about the little Sony one that never really worked. But it still existed. So, yes.
Yeah, they had women like Stacey Horn, who founded or was a big part of Echo, which is the East Coast Hangout. Oh. It's like pre-internet. Like, it sounded almost like it was like message boards.
Ooh, yes, that sounds good. And right.
And that sounds like old internet.
Remember internet cafes? Yeah, did you guys ever go to internet cafe? Oh, damn it, I'm old.
I did.
Okay, did you?
Yeah.
I went for the coffee and for the internet.
Well, I went when I was traveling in Europe. Wow. That sounds douchey, but...
No, it sounds cool. I never went to Europe.
That time I was in Europe and I went to the internet cafe.
At least you did be like, when I was backpacking through Prague.
Espresso. But no, I forget if it was the Echo or another similar thing where, you know, a woman started it and she wanted to make sure that there were other women there.
Nice.
That it wouldn't be overpopulated by men. So
right.
she would, like, actually write to women and be like, hey, come join this thing. And they made sure that each one of these, like, chat room thingies had 2 moderators. They were both a man and a woman.
Very
and,
nice.
like, 50% of the people that were using the service were women.
Cool.
Which is still, I don't think we have that today with a lot of stuff.
No.
So it was really cool. And, like, when someone would leave, like, she would, I think she still does it, like, hand writes, like, sends you stuff in the mail.
Aww.
To be like, come join, or why are you
come
leaving?
On back and,
yeah.
Are you okay? Yeah.
Yeah. Like, that's, I think you can still join and she will hand send you this packet.
Aw, I like that. It's the personal touch.
Some woman invented, like, the hyperlinks.
Oh, okay.
That's like, when you think of the internet, you think of a link. Mm-hmm. That used to not be how the internet was.
Yeah.
They had some other system, which I remember listening to it. I'm like, well, that makes more sense. Because now, when you hit a hyperlink, they said, like, the lifespan of it's only like 7 years or something.
Oh, because the link
so usually broke. Like, yeah, by that time it's moved and it doesn't work and you get that 404 error.
Yeah.
A woman like invented the hyperlink.
Interesting.
And they covered Nancy Ryan and the Well and the Women's Information Resource Exchange Women's Wire.
Oh, we had our own internet basically?
It was, I think it's now like women.com or something, but I think it was like Women's Wire for a while.
Interesting.
And there was this video game that I'm surprised I didn't hear about, Purple Moon.
No?
Apparently it was like as big as like that Barbie and the fashion designer thing.
Okay, no,
like
that one
back in the day.
Right.
It was like that.
Okay.
And it was developed by women and it was like the most popular game they had. And they had like several different, they had like a series of them.
Gotcha.
And it was something like, I think that was the one they were talking about. It's like in a high school, kind of like,
okay,
you pick, and there's like, it's teaching girls about consequences. And because you could be like the popular girl and the nerdy girl, like you get to pick different things to do.
Click,
you're like living a high school experience.
Oh, interesting. Maybe that's why I didn't so much play that one, because I feel like I played that one in the real life.
So I just have a list of pretty much names.
Gotcha.
Down
to
here.
Learn more about, basically, to like dig into. Who was your favorite that you learned about? Or, sorry, who should I say do you most want to go and learn more about? You know what I mean? Who's like, oh my gosh, I need to dig in and learn more about this person.
I'm still trying to do the Rear Admiral Grasshopper.
Yes.
So I read one book, and this guy didn't like cover. He kind of like 3 chapters of her boss, Aiken, and then like the next chapter, he finally got back to Grace, and like 2 little sentences like she had a drinking problem, and I'm like. Let's talk about that. Like,
right.
Why are you just skipping over this?
Why are you burying the lead, dude?
Yeah. So I have another book from a lady. I'm going to read that one, too.
Sweet.
But that one is just the first one. I think I was able to get that one on overdrive through the library.
Oh, cool.
So I did that one.
Awesome.
No, I really want to hear about, like, the Echo and the other thing, because that's, like...
Yeah.
Like, pre-internet. Like, you had to... People were like running wires from their house and stuff. It was crazy, this early internet stuff.
Gotcha. It was still going over phone line then at the time, right?
It was like a phone line, and you had to like pay to have like an upgraded line or something.
Gotcha.
Because for me, I'm like, yeah, the internet started with dial up, and there's like so much more before that.
Yeah.
Because I grew up in the 90s, so I'm like, AOL was the beginning of the internet.
Is that when you get that disc?
Disc, yeah.
Exactly. I made a mobile out of those discs one time because I'm like, there's so many of these in the world, and they keep sending you like every month they send you another one. And I'm like, I'm gonna make a mobile.
When did they stop doing that?
Not that long ago. Like I remember an article, and it was shared on Facebook, and it was one of those things where I'm like, this is weird that I'm reading this on Facebook, but it was like the very last AOL disc has been sent out.
Oh, good.
And I'm like, they're still doing these?
Oh, man.
I'm like, why are you still doing these? But yeah, it wasn't that long ago, so.
But yeah, there was like a whole bunch of women who were involved in like just computers in general and the internet. Some
nice
woman who came up with like the bookmark feature.
Ooh, very cool.
There was a lady. Jean, I have Salmon. I think that changed it to Salmon. I don't think it's her last name's Salmon.
Salomon.
Maybe. It's one of the first people to teach computer program in the U.S. at a graduate level.
Oh, very nice.
There's people in IBM and Honeywell. Mm-hmm. There's like a whole bunch of women who worked on the I can't even say it right. EMIAC?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
The first computers?
Yes, the very early computers.
It was like, I have a note here that 50 women worked on it.
Really?
And I know like 3. But just because of this book.
Right,
and the other books. Because I think Grace Hopper worked on it for a while, too.
I think so. And I think there's something Ada Lovelace related. I thought there's a... no, because there's an Ada program.
There's a programming language named after her.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if it's part of that computer or something like that. Or I think it's maybe Grace Hopper that I'm always thinking of, too, that she worked on the super... Because the ENIAC was the supercomputer, wasn't it?
It's like one of the first, like, computers.
Yeah.
Like
the modern computer.
She worked on the Mark I at Harvard, and then the ENIAC was a short time later. And the people were just like inventing the computer like simultaneously all over.
Yeah, because like Britain has a different history of the computer. I remember I had to look at that, and I'm like going, wait, Britain's saying they did it first, and I'm like, oh, it was kind of the same time. Yeah.
And they were talking about shifting from the punch card tape into the magnetic tape. They liked the punch card tape because it was like a physical thing. Yeah. And to loop it, you literally just taped it together to loop a program.
It's like Phil.
If you wanted to fix the holes, like if it was wrong, you either punched a new hole or put a little piece of tape or a paper and taped together over a hole. And you could actually like write notes on the tape because it's only reading the holes.
Cool that you could write on it. Yeah.
And then with the magnetic tape, they were like, we don't know what's on this. Yeah. Like they liked that you could reuse it because once you're done with that program, I mean, you just kind of throw out the tape.
Right. The magnetizer, you can just put it through the magnetizer.
Yeah, and reuse it.
Yeah, exactly.
But they were like, not trusting of it. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of women in this book.
Fascinating. You highly recommend the book that way?
Yes, we need it for the library. It's on the wish list.
Yes, we have a glorious Amazon wish
list. Hint.
I know. I will put a link in the comments.
Betty Hollerton.
Ooh, yes.
Came up with that oatmeal beige color that like those computer like the towers.
Oh,
that
really?
Oatmeal, that woman was
that
like
always looked like
we'll make them beige.
Cigarette smoked,
yeah.
tinted. Very nice. That beautiful color of computer beige. Classy.
It's iconic now, really.
It really is sitting in landfills across this glorious country. Oh, perfect. I always loved it. Katie, what is it that you usually call the internet? Do you remember?
Interwebs?
The interwebs. Yeah.
Interwebs.
She's like, I don't know. I saw it on the interwebs, but I steal that all the time. It's such a Katie line. Especially when you want to make fun of the interwebs.
Right.
I think usually when we talk about, Josh and I, we end up talking about Reddit. And so it'll be like, on the interwebs of Reddit. And those two just go very well together. Did you have anything else, Miss Bon Bon?
I'm trying to see if there was Nancy Ryan of the Well, which I think was like Echo.
Gotcha.
It's like a thing.
Basically like a group sort of thing? Like a
it was like a weird
forum?
Kind of, but like I'm trying to picture. I think it was like those text-based monitors kind of a thing.
Oh, okay.
And there weren't like links to stuff. And one of these, you had to put in, like, your real name. You couldn't use a screen name because they didn't want people being, like, harassed and weird.
Right,
like, they had to know your real name on
Kind
it.
of like for protection and authenticity sort of thing.
It's like they knew what was coming.
Probably. I mean, yeah. They were working with the people who would later become the future hackers of it. So, yeah, once there's a bug in the system. You got to talk about the Grace Hopper bug in the system thing.
So
I do love that
Grace
story.
Hopper, when they're working on the Mach 1, or I keep calling it Mach 1.
The Mark
1.
Yes, very close.
At Harvard. They were having computer issues. So this is back in the day when the thing took up like a big room.
Mm-hmm.
Like to work on the computer, it was like kind of like those library shelves or the ones you see at the doctor's office where you gotta pull out the whole bookshelf. Right. It was like one of those. So they got in there and they literally found a moth was on one of the relays. Mm-hmm. It's like back in the days when they had those look like little light bulbs.
Right.
Where the little tubes.
Kind of like the Enigma machine.
Yeah, they were always like replacing all these tubes and wires and stuff. And they would go out all the time. So they always had to get in there.
Yeah.
But they found a moth. And in the logbook for that day, they taped the moth in there. And it says like first evidence of a computer bug next to it.
I do love that.
No, in one of the books, they were talking about like they would play pranks on the boss, Aiken. Mm-hmm. Like they would say that the computer was just like down all night and they didn't do anything about it, and he'd be like, "Oh man," it was kind of funny because Grace Hopper's just there's a YouTube of her on David Letterman, and she's just like this hilarious little old lady.
Yes.
So it's just funny to try and picture her back when she's like 40. She didn't join the Navy till she was like 37 or something for World War II.
Nice.
She wanted to help with the war effort. So she's doing all this work. She was like 40 and playing pranks on her supervisor.
I do love it. Fantastic. Katie, did you have any questions?
Nope, just enjoying it. This is fun stuff. And, I don't understand the interwebs,
like,
so I have to just soak it all up.
There's a bug in the system and women invented it.
Yeah, we invented everything.
No, I've been having a real hard time to try and wrap my brain around, like, what a compiler is.
Yeah, that is
hard. Grace Hopper, it's like...
Yeah.
I thought I had it down for a little bit, but that was like a year or two ago, and now I'm like trying to relearn it. Trying to rewatch, is it Grace? It's like Mary Grace Philbin or something has a, she's the computer lady. I think she's involved with the Raspberry Pi.
Oh, okay.
They have it's not Stuff You Should Know.
Gotcha. Is it a YouTube channel?
It's like a YouTube channel.
Okay.
It sounds like I think it is like maybe through like PBS.
Oh, okay.
Or something.
Gotcha.
But it's like, it's like a crash course. It's crash course
I know
in
Crash Course. Yeah.
computing or something.
I've watched
and
a couple of those on lunch
through
break,
like the history of computers, and they talk about Ada Lovelace, and they talk about Grace Hopper, and they kind of like teach you like if you were gonna program a computer like starting with nothing, like the ones and zeros are transistors on or off is really what that is.
Right. Yeah.
And they just build it up and up and up, and they get to compilers, and I remember being like, okay, But I'm like, it's gone.
And then you're
it's
like,
left my brain.
over my head. Yeah, exactly.
Like, I think it's something where they can like reuse parts of a program, so they don't have to, like, if you're wanting to rewrite a program, it's just saved somewhere else, so you can just tell the computer, no, the next part of this program is somewhere else. Go grab it and
like
then run it.
Routing sort of thing.
I think it's something.
Directive.
I just know it's really important.
Yes, no, I'm with you.
It's really important.
I believe anything that's hard to describe, but yet we still use it in ATM machines is really important.
And I've been having a real hard time getting like a sample of the code for the AO or the COBOL. I mean, I think the COBOL kind of looks like English, so I don't think when you'd read that, it would look as much like computer code, not like HTML or something.
Right, exactly. Or binary so much of ones and zeros. It's kind of like, in between computer code access.
Because I've been wanting to do with like Ada Lovelace, I built her form out of the program that she wrote.
Her algorithm,
So I was wanting to do the same thing with Grace Hopper, but I can't find the program that Grace Hopper wrote because they just like threw things away. Like everything was like moving so fast.
Right.
They just kind of I think someone does have like some of the tape somewhere, like a museum.
Ooh.
And the Smithsonian has the Rear Admiral Grace Hopper archives, but I don't think I can access them.
Oh, gotcha. Not yet, anyway. We shall work on that magic.
Like, there's a link, and it's like, they're right here. And I'm like, I'm clicking.
Ironic that the hyperlink is broken.
No, I think you need access through, like, a library. Or there's something that I don't have this. It's not working.
Gotcha. We shall totally
feel
figure
like
that
it's
out.
right there.
I know.
Like right out of my reach.
So close. So close. You can almost touch it.
Well, that wraps it up for us this week. Join us next week as our next Gal Pal shares her one cool thing as Gal's Guide to the Galaxy podcast continues. Thanks for listening.
For show notes, links, and images from this week's show, visit galsguide.org. Want exclusive stuff like deleted bits and major bloopers? Become a Gals Guide patron today. Thanks for listening.